commercial, but personal. Is that, are we all on the same
Yes.
page? Yes. Okay. All right, let's flip the page.
Wait,
Oh.
I have a problem with 4118, the exceptions of that we can use them during the holiday period of July 4th and New Year's Eve.
Yeah, I do too.
You know, what if spring break, the kids are here, let's shoot some fireworks
Right.
right away. Why is that an
That's,
issue?
I don't think we need to.
Is that personal use gonna give us the ability to do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can find them for sale.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people.
Well, no, they take it on stored.
I have them stored at my house right now, and I'm just saying, let's just forget about any dates. If you want to shoot them when your kids come over from college, shoot them.
Okay.
Let's do that. Okay.
So strike during the holiday periods, July 4th and New Year's,
Right.
but leave in periods which have been approved, well, yeah, periods which have been approved.
See, the burn ban will
Well,
take care of any
of anything like
problems like that.
That
I think we need to strike
could be
it.
dropped altogether.
Right. I think it should be too.
Okay, this chapter shall not apply to fireworks or pyrotechnic displays except when expressly prohibited. So take out everything up
Okay,
to,
sounds good.
except when expressly prohibited, such as during burn bans enacted by the local
Sounds
authority.
good.
That sounds
Okay.
good.
Good.
4117 is gone, 4118 is amended.
Thank you.
And 4116, I'll have wording in there that says
For personal.
for personal use.
Next page, health and sanitation.
Okay, wait a minute. One other question. The next page, 4220A. Okay, now on this thing,
42 what?
42.20.
Well, wait, you jumped ahead of us.
Yeah, we're at
Yeah.
4201.
You jumped the page.
No, I
You're
didn't.
missing a page.
I missed a page.
We didn't want you to
You
look
did
at
that
this.
deliberately, didn't you? He left out a whole chapter on me when he come out.
We thought it cut down on.
Which one is this one on?
It's not
We've got one
Okay,
down.
all right. I got the new one, but you handed me the
Oh,
wrong
well,
one.
if you have the new one, do you have health and sanitation?
7 pages.
Where am I?
Y'all wanna do a countdown? Thank you folks for your patience here.
I got the new one from the other day, I just had no notes on it.
All right, we're at health and sanitation, top of the page. Chapter 42. Let's regroup a moment.
Okay, I got it on this.
All right, everybody on the same page? If I happen to gloss over something somebody mentioned to me that I didn't get a good note on to address when we got to that page, have I done that yet with any of you folks that made comments? Is there anybody thinking I bypassed something you asked? Bring it to my attention, because I did take notes the best I could during the time you were speaking, and I'm trying to make sure I cover that when we get to that point. We haven't got to the junk vehicles. That's about the last part of it that I'm looking at to address when we get to it. But step up and say something if you don't see me looking at you with your hand raised or something.
Okay, I'm just going down on the privacy fence.
Well, let's go to motor vehicle first.
Whoa,
Whoa.
I thought we was on.
No.
You're on
We're still,
public uses.
I'm still on
Okay.
chapter 42,
Okay.
health and sanitation.
Yeah.
We're on that
You're on
page.
4215, right?
4215 is the definitions.
Yes, sir.
Motor vehicle, there were some questions about personal watercraft.
Yes.
Okay.
I see where the where it says which is propelled. Do we necessarily have to put on water?
Well, we're going to add,
No.
or drawn on land or water by a motor such as, but not limited to, passenger cars, trucks, campers, go-karts, dune buggies, boats, racing vehicles, PWC, and motorcycles.
Is that
So
what
we'll add,
works?
we'll add
Yeah, what
boats
does this say?
and personal
What
watercraft.
does this
It's
say?
just a definition of what they're
Oh, this is-
considering a
Yeah,
motor vehicle.
we're just adding a couple items.
Okay.
Yeah,
Clarify.
and what it goes back to is that if it's required to be licensed in the state of Texas, then it falls under this part of the public nuisance as a motor vehicle.
But we also have,
Golf carts, mules.
well, but I'm talking about.
This is just describing what they are.
You know, somebody can take
What
a
if they're
collection
not
of canoes and we can.
What about a paddle boat?
It doesn't have
What
a
if
motor on it.
Well, but
You got a golf cart you ride?
what else can you do with your
It's a
canoe? A lot of
public
times a
street.
canoe is going to be, I
It's
mean,
not required to be licensed, what if it forbids you to ride a
well,
golf cart?
that would
on a public
be,
street? I haven't read this part, he didn't give it to me.
yes, you had it. You just admitted that.
It's not
You didn't look
on
through
there.
the new one.
All right, let's keep moving. Let's keep moving.
Okay.
Mr. Graham,
Oh,
you
Judge,
have
I'm
a
sorry.
question, but
Yes, I'm
Does
sorry.
this include paddle boats?
Well, if it's if it's still usable, what we're kind of addressing, yeah, first of all, it's not licensed, but if it's still usable, you have to put it somewhere, and it's not like anybody's gonna be required to put a garage of a canoe or a paddle boat, because you don't have much chance to move your paddle boat, because they don't go on trailers or things like that. So the smaller items like that are not gonna be
Real portable.
the issue.
Yeah, I think
It's something that can be
one or
moved.
two is not the problem. If you had like 50 or 60, that might be the problem.
Or if it's not in use anymore. If it's a paddle boat with a big hole in it, then it's not a paddle boat anymore, then it's a boat with a hole.
Usable, but I just don't use it.
Yeah, well, if it's still usable, that won't fall under this if it's in disrepair.
Is everybody okay?
Under garbage, is there a way to exclude confined compostable waste?
I think there's an exception for that. I'll try to find that.
We compost as well. I understand what you're saying.
I know we covered that, Steve, somewhere.
Yeah, we did cover that, because a lot of people are into the green, be green like Kermit type stuff.
Country living.
It works. So so in other words, what she's asking, we are addressing.
We will get to that in here somewhere. Right now, this is just mostly the description of what we're.
These are definitions.
Well, she was looking at the vegetable waste resulting from.
Well, but we did discuss that, but this is just the definitions that we're looking at now.
Okay.
And as far as the regulation, that'll come in for the next.
Y'all ready to flip the page?
Can you give me clarification, Steve, on public nuisance number 2?
B2, animal carcasses?
A2.
A2.
Greatly offend the public morals or decency.
Well, if it's more than one person that thinks you stinks.
Are you talking about an establishment or an individual?
No, I think anything that you can see that as a public, the majority of.
To open view.
Yeah, to open view.
All right.
If the general public would find it offensive, then that would be a public.
Okay.
It had to be an obvious issue.
Right, I thought he was
And
talking about something in specific.
Let's go to the junk vehicle page, next page.
That's not junk vehicles.
I don't have that.
All right.
We still have part 42.
Yes.
chapter
Violations?
42.
On violations?
Yeah, we're still in the 4215 definitions.
Well, I got 20 next, on the next page.
Turn to your very last page, John.
Yes, okay.
Look, because the one Steve had given me originally had them stapled, these two pages stapled in the very back.
It was late at night.
You're not on the right page.
Next page I
4215, is where we're at?
We're at 4215, continues on the next page.
4 and 5.
Under B4, it should start with number 4, stagnant water and
I
rich
don't have a
mosquitoes.
page.
I don't have a page.
I'll look over here.
Is that what this one is?
Might be in the back, it's not
Oh,
that.
Jack,
I'm sorry, this is, okay.
Hey, you want to go ahead and just read it real quick so that don't have it?
Well, I'm looking at it over here.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions? Comment.
Just a second.
Any of the population out there want to comment? Feel free.
There was a question previously about if Granny wanted to sit on her
Porch.
recliner out on the porch. This doesn't have anything that prohibits that. If you look at number 11, unsightly articles that are visible from adjoining property, but not limited to household appliances not in use, auto parts, furniture in disrepair, or not in actual use. Furniture in disrepair is going to be, if you can't sit in it, then it's in disrepair. But even if it's older and not actually an outdoor furniture piece, this doesn't prohibit something like that. But it does prohibit you from lining up 4 chairs in the, 4 recliners in the front that should be going to the garbage.
Steve, on number 9, it says something about within 1 mile of the city limits. Any use of property, substance, or things within the city limits are within 1 mile of the city limits.
Limit to the ETJ?
What's our ETJ?
Okay, or within the ETJ. of the city.
Do we have a jurisdiction of 1 mile?
No.
ETJ of Cofy city limits.
I just changed that word, and he said that.
Just use ETJ.
ETJ.
Just use
This is a
ETJ.
very-
ETJ of Cofy
And
city.
whatever the definition is will be done.
Okay.
And you also have provisions in here for the dilapidated buildings
Yes.
up here, and also, I noticed in your vicinity over there, a lot of mobile homes are abandoned. Does this cover that as well?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're on number 10 talking?
Yeah, we're on 12. We're
Okay.
on 10 and 12,
Okay.
which is a very good thing because that I think that needs to be in there. I mean, abandonment of those things and just left to sit there, that just ain't cool.
We've been weeding them out, but it's
Yeah,
just,
I mean, that's
you
just
get
so
2 out and then
necessary.
3 other ones go back.
I know.
Who's gonna make a determination?
Well, if it's,
Abandoned,
if it's in a state of dilapidation, deterioration, or decay of faulty construction, you don't have to determine that, you just tell them that this is not up to a health standard.
Do we have a code, do we have, I told you about, down here on 14, do we have a code ordinance that specifies those facilities?
You know, understand what I'm saying? Who's gonna be responsible for
That's
taking
what I'm
it?
asking.
That's my question
We have
to
code
the mayor.
ordinance.
Who makes that determination? I mean, someone could be living in this, but somebody determines that it's dilapidated, but that's their residence, that's where they're living at.
We have people, well, I understand that.
And what you interpret as being a public nuisance, to me, it might not be a public nuisance. That might be a retired person on a fixed income, and that's the best that they can do.
we're gonna build a new house.
Well, no, you're gonna all be on the city. But if there wasn't 6 people that's in the city that live in dilapidated houses, you're not gonna build all of them. And who's gonna determine that?
To be brought before the city council before any.
Well, I definitely think
Well,
abandoned
I would like to hope
mobile
and think
homes
that none of us would be
Well-
so aggressive to take advantage of a person of that nature she
No,
just
I
described.
really don't think that is.
Should it
if-
say that if a person occupies the house?
Yeah, I
would
was
that make a
thinking, I was
difference,
thinking
you
this
know?
was pertaining to abandoned.
Abandoned.
Property.
You said dilapidated. So that
It doesn't say
someone could live
abandoned.
in it.
What about it?
Well, my house is probably dilapidated, but I mean,
Electricity
I
or
meant
water.
abandoned. And have you been to?
Can we say dilapidated?
Seen a couple of those
And-
On 4217 down here, there is a house with the outside materials.
Okay, here's where,
Insulation blowing around the neighborhood. That would be one I
He's
have.
giving clarification.
here's what this will, this addresses this. If you read number 10, any structure or building that is in a state of dilapidation, but now hear the whole thing. In a state of dilapidation, deterioration, or decay, of faulty construction, open to intrusion, abandoned,
Yeah,
damaged by
that's
fire.
what I thought.
Mike,
Abandoned.
Okay.
damaged by fire to the
Yeah.
extent as not to provide shelter, extremely unsound, in danger of collapse or failure, or endangers the health and safety of the public.
So if they
If
live
a
there, they're not
person,
abandoned.
if a person is living in a place and they've got water and electricity, it doesn't make any difference.
It's not
This doesn't really concern the city. If they're living in a place that is unhealthy, even for them, they may not know it's unhealthy, but there's a point when sometimes you have to help people. Now, if, we have people that live in houses without water, electricity, or anything like that. They own the property, that's as good as they can do. But that doesn't mean the neighbors should put up with them crapping in the backyard, because they have no water. I mean, there's a point when you have to look at the health of the whole city, and that would be something that would be taken on a one-by-one basis.
Well, then we need to help them as a community, not take their house away from them.
Well, this isn't saying you're taking the house away from them, but this does,
Well,
We're
it
gonna
kind
get
of
to that.
This one thing says abandoned though. Abandoned, it has to be abandoned and it has to be dilapidated.
It doesn't say and, it says that.
We can make it say and.
No, it
Why
says
would-
any of these.
You want to put in dilapidated?
It says
and-
open to intrusion, abandoned, damaged by fire, to the
Or
extent
just
that
in
it
a
does not
state of
provide.
dilapidation.
Well, we
Well,
don't
then-
have to buy this whole paragraph. We
then
can
you
strike
take out in the
just
state of dilapidation. You
Yes,
just,
let's strike that.
remove dilapidation and put deterioration or decay.
But if it can, intrusion, if somebody can come in, it's abandoned or damaged by fire to the extent that it does not provide shelter, that needs to remain.
And if it's unhealthy, you know, if
But
the
I agree
walls
with
are
you.
falling
I
off
don't
of
think
it.
that, I don't think the intent of this is to go around and knock on people's door and say, hey, you need a new porch. I mean, that, I don't think that's what we're getting at here, and I would,
No.
and if we have to write around that to make sure of that, but just because the place is dilapidated, well, that's a matter of opinion.
And all of this can be addressed through the courts also. That, you know, this isn't just a one-way road.
We're trying to head off going to that point, I understand.
Yeah, I can understand Ms.
but
Davis' concern.
Let your drop off dilapidated.
I agree with the young lady up there on people living on fixed income and all. If anybody here in Briarwood Bay remembers all the way down to the end of Valley View Road, that old house that set off to the right on the corner was all literally just a mess. Walls falling in and all. But that black gentleman lived there till he died. And then there is another couple living in an old dilapidated house that's about to fall apart and all of that. And I know them for a fact because I helped them with their electricity. And as far as fixed income, I've already been through all of this. I've already been to court on all of this. So I know what it is. And I had to get rid of my vehicle. I had to clean my whole yard up. I had to clean up my porch. I had to take stuff off of my porch. I had to move lumber out of my yard that was mine. So I know what all this is. And one other thing. It has just cost me $1,200 and something to put carpet in my floor. It cost me $6,000 and something to put siding on my house now. The VA is coming in with $8,000 and putting a sink, I mean not a sink, but a shower for me. I'm a handicapped disabled veteran. And they're coming in and putting this shower in for me. And Labor of Love put that big old ramp up around my house. And when you said that we will give them a new house, what has their income got to be to come for this?
We're gonna learn all that.
Yeah, that's something we don't have an answer to.
We just now get the authority to investigate and proceed with
Yeah.
that situation. So hopefully, maybe we can find 6 families that fit that description and do what we can for them.
Well, all I know is everything that in this right here, I've already violated and had to straighten it all up. I had to do it mostly by myself. I even fell out in the yard and had to go to the hospital. But I just want you to know that some of it I go for, some of it I don't.
I understand, sir.
And but people on fixed income, they have a hard time. I draw Social Security and VA, and we have a hard time. Well, that's what I'm getting
Well,
at.
we're gonna try to be as sympathetic towards these issues as we can.
Yeah.
Do we have a code of ordinances that specifies who makes the
There's one down there, 217, got the outside
Well,
material,
let's wait to
taking off
Steve.
the material.
Okay, here's my question, okay, I have the same question. Who makes the determination that this is a dilapidated building?
Well, we
Does the
eliminate
council, does one
dilapidated.
person?
I don't have any.
Who makes the determination?
Well, this is a suggestion. If a person is residing in the house, maybe we ought to let that.
Well, it's not abandoned.
Well, if the person is residing in the house and they have water, electric, and septic, and because that's a health code. If you're living in a house with water, without water and septic and electricity, you're not living anywhere. I mean, that's like, I mean,
So what are
like
you
picture
gonna
someone.
those people?
Well, then
But you
try
have a
to.
shelter.
Well, you have to-
And if you get kicked out of your house, you're out on the street.
That's something that Health and Human Services, they have programs for that, but people shouldn't be allowed to live in some place. Where would you take a shower? How can you cook food? How can you even go to the bathroom? You don't in that kind of house. You go outside and do it.
Don't you think a person that didn't have those amenities like electricity and water, don't you think that they would be on some sort of a substance from the state or, I mean, it kind of makes me wonder if a person in that condition, they've gotta be getting a check, right? It makes me think that person may
Not
be spending
necessarily.
some money on
Not
the road or
necessarily.
something,
Let me ask you
right?
this,
Not
going through work,
necessarily.
city will not,
Well, I got-
lay out to
I mean, if you can't afford water,
Well, wait, let's let a
We
couple
have
comments
places
roll
where,
in.
and then they go in and squat. We've got some people that live that have lived in houses without electric or water.
Let,
And there's just,
Mr. White,
it's
Let
tough.
let me address that issue. Because of the nature of our community and the rural atmosphere, there are some places that people live in that some people wouldn't live in. Now, when I live on Stevenson Road, and when I moved in over there, I had an old black man that lived across the road from me. He had a house over there. It wasn't the nicest looking house. He had no electric, he had no water. He got his water out of the lake until I put a faucet up at the top of my road, and he used to get water there. But he was very comfortable there. He lived only on a small amount of money. He got less than $200 a month that he lived on. Now, those are situations that we have. And I don't think we need to just come right straight down on somebody that lives like that. He was happy there, and nobody bothered him.
Mr. Rutledge?
I recently served on a jury in Henderson County that had this exact issue. It was a couple that there was 10 people total living in this 500 square foot, no running water, they did have electricity. The county could not do anything about them not having water or force them to do that. That was part of the whole deal. So I don't know where we've got, if the county can't do it, how we do it.
Yes, sir.
This ain't gonna go nowhere, why don't we just start off with abandoned? Start off with abandoned properties.
And leave it
Solve the
at that.
problem. Start with abandoned, then when it becomes a problem, it hits newspaper, then we'll worry about that then. Let's start with abandoned first, once we get rid of those, because we have a problem with that where I live. We need to get that stuff, because the first time kids get hurt or something like that, we have a problem. So let's start off with abandoned, and let everybody live. That's
So-
my suggestion.
Would that fit you, Ms. Jordan?
I'm not, and Mr. Graham is here, I am not gonna be a party to anything that is gonna kick anybody out of their house, put a lien on anybody's
Did you see
property.
what he said then?
I heard what he
Let
said.
that completely out,
I am,
completely out.
anybody that wants to pass an ordinance that's saying that your house is dilapidated, I mean, somebody might pass by my house and decide that my house is dilapidated. It's according to interpretation, how you're interpreting it. What's dilapidated for one person is not necessarily dilapidated for another one. That might be the best that that person can do. And if the people that are in this room, if they're Christians like me, we need to go to those, if we can help to fix up something for somebody, we need to do that rather than try to take something from somebody or put somebody out.
Amen.
Let's not alienate nobody by saying Christians, this and that, because then you start alienating people. So, like I said, if we say abandoned, if they're living there, fine. If they move off the property for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months, they're not living there. We're not trying to take nobody's stuff. Let's start off with abandoned. Leave all that other word now, start off with abandoned.
Well, and then I also have a question about landlords who are renting that currently have properties that do not have people living in them, who are aimlessly hoping that somebody will want to come and rent from them, but it's not rented at the time. So therefore, at this time, it's.
So is that a definition of abandonment?
Is that definition of abandoned, or, you know, because they're
When they say abandoned.
near that property, but they're not on that, so.
Wouldn't that come in with?
I wouldn't think that's necessarily
Yeah.
considered abandoned. If they're still
Not if they're
maintaining the property.
it, yes.
They still have water and electric hooked up to it, then they still have
Well, if you don't have a renter in there, and you don't have water and electric in there.
Well, but if they're still maintaining the property in a manner that's consistent with the neighborhood or certain standards, then that's their right to do with what they want. You can leave your house for 6 months and go on vacation. It's not considered abandoned because you still maintain your property taxes and everything else, so.
My thing is, I just want to make sure there's a provision in there for landlords who are renting to people, that's not a
Steve,
definition.
Would you read aloud 10, word for word, and maybe it will pretty much explain what you're trying to get at with this? Because this doesn't sound like throw mom out in the street to me.
No, but we will put.
Would you read that aloud?
Any
I mean,
structure or building that is abandoned and, we're gonna add abandoned and, in a state of dilapidation, deterioration, or decay, faulty construction, open to intrusion, take out abandoned from there, damaged by fire to the extent it's not to provide shelter, it's unsound, in danger of collapse or failure, or endangers the health and safety to the public.
Does that sound pretty good?
If it's abandoned and can meet any other thing in here, if it's deemed to be abandoned, we have properties that, and you can find out if the house is abandoned, there's a couple of easy ways to do it. If they don't pay their taxes, the taxes haven't been paid for a couple of years, and there's no water or electric, and it's in a state of deterioration, you probably would assume that it's been abandoned.
See, that's excluding your rental property that is vacant, because it has to fit other criteria like burned, deteriorated, decayed, faulty construction, open to intrusion. You see, that's not talking about a rent house that you haven't rented. So they don't need, in my opinion, there needs to be
It's
no.
still a useful structure.
Yeah.
Right, it's still
Well,
a
adding,
useful
yeah,
structure.
adding the abandoned and I think helps segue
Yeah.
the questions that we had previously.
Yes.
Actually, I think the intent of this is to get rid of unsightly property and so forth that
People
no
are no
one
longer
has
interested.
any intentions of repairing, and I can show you a dozen of them.
Are you in a contract?
Right?
At what point do you determine a property to be abandoned?
If
Well-
the taxes aren't paid, and there's no services to it.
I think
Right,
the
case in
services
point.
are not legit. I mean, I don't think that
Well, no.
not having water and electric in a rental unit that hasn't been rented
No, but
for
what I'm saying
2
is-
months.
One of the things that would be a requirement is if they
Oh.
stop paying their taxes, then they don't have any interest in keeping the property. Because if you don't pay your taxes, the county can take it pretty much at will. So, if the taxes are paid on it and it's in decent condition, it doesn't meet this criteria of being, of being abandoned. Because when you abandon a property, you give up your obligations to do anything with it.
Ray, when I read this, the first thing that come to my mind was this abandoned church right up here, which is definitely a
Well,
dangerous.
there's no question about that.
Have
type
you
of
been down
situation.
4217 in the curve of the road, and have you seen the aluminum removed off of that mobile home, and it has exposed the insulation and it's blowing all over the place? This is what I had in mind. I didn't read this as we were gonna kick Ma and Pa out of the house, and I would not go for that.
Mr. Riley?
Yeah, we have a house in there that would it be considered abandoned and all? It's dilapidated, I'll agree with that. And then the storage building that's beside it, also. But it also has a pickup truck with a camper and a boat. The pickup is as old as I am, and the camper. And then it has other personal items in the backyard. I lived next to that building there for nearly 3 years. And so,
They occupy that property?
no, I think the Bay knows who owns it, because we've mentioned before.
But you haven't seen anybody there in years?
Well, I haven't seen nobody there in the whole 3 years that we lived there.
It's
We've got property over here that people have lived in 6 years.
Yeah.
But does it fit this other things like damaged by fire,
Is it
faulty, decayed, deteriorating, open to intrusion?
Reported one, we had some people out there trying to steal an abandoned vehicle. And I reported that.
This
They
was not
told the
meant,
vehicle to keep it from being stolen.
there was no intention in here of putting someone out of a property that they're living in where it's a
Absolutely.
safe condition for them. Now, if the older women want to help the people that are living someplace without facilities, then, that's their right to do that, because I heard that they feel we should help people like that. Well, then, help them and bring them out of their situation where it's not healthy for them. If you really truly believe that this is something that's worthwhile to keep them in their home, then help them to get water and electric. And whether it's going through a health organization or Red Cross or something like that, put together a plan where you can help these people.
Has Briarwood Bay done that within the community before we became part of the city?
We
Did
never
y'all
offered
try
to do that.
Did y'all try to help the people there that have these dilapidated houses that are living there with no
Individuals have,
electricity?
yes,
or-
individuals have, it just as
Can't
suggested
help
here.
everybody.
Well, no, I understand
Well,
that,
we
but
have-
he's suggesting that we go take care of these people that
You
don't
suggested
have
that.
this, you know?
You and Darlene suggested that, it wasn't my suggestion.
No,
And
that's
that's a
correct.
good
I
thing,
think
but
we
we,
do
but we
need to
can't
help
help
those
everybody,
people.
so that's why we're
Right.
just, let's just work on the abandoned ones.
Yeah, we've addressed that as
Okay.
a ban.
I think that's good.
Well, are you all pretty confident with the way he
Yes, I think
Yes.
we need to move on before we get stuck on
Okay, well,
something.
that's pretty important issue though.
Okay, let's go to, the next page I have is the,
42?
yeah,
Health and
the
sanitation.
4220.
Right, what about 4217?
4201.
16 and 17.
4216 and 17.
All right, then I gotta flip his page.
16,
Yeah, okay,
17,
this is 2
there's 3
pages on
pages.
this.
4217,
Under E2,
direct the owner of the private property where the public nuisance exists to abate or remove the public nuisance within 10 days of service or posting of the notice. I think 10 days is rather a short amount.
Yeah, we discussed some of those, that was one that got by us. We were looking at 14 days, that gives them 2 weeks, and they don't necessarily have to abate it completely, but they have to have a plan in place that shows, here's what we want. I think it's something where if they can't answer you in 14 days what their plans are, then they have no plans.
So just to tell you, they've got intentions of doing it within 14 days.
So yes, and come up with some kind of a plan and a timeline, because it does, some things take longer than just 14 days, but if they can address the problem and give you an answer on what they plan to do.
So it doesn't have to be completed within that.
No, but, and which one was that?
That was number E2.
E2. Change it to 14 days?
14 days and with a plan, I guess.
Yeah,
There's some
that's
language in there.
Must abate,
Or plan to, have planned for.
okay. To provide a plan to abate. Or remove the public nuisance. Okay, direct the owner of the property where the nuisance exists to provide a plan to abate or remove the public nuisance within 14 days of service. So within 2 weeks, they have to show you that, I can't afford to do it right now. Some people are gonna clean it up right away. Some people are gonna say, give me a couple of days and here's what I've got.